Madridistas, welcome back on the morning after. Welcome back to Madrid, to the channel. What a first leg. My God, what a first leg. This was, everything that we sort of had expected. What an incredible battle between two just monsters of European football. I mean, this was kind of everything that we had sort of expected. I mean, both of these teams have such a winning mentality. They play with such confidence. They're two teams that just, they don't wilt, they don't get intimidated. They just, they don't give up. I mean, these are two proper champions. 20 European Cups between the two of them. It doesn't get better than this. But listen, I want to give you guys my thoughts on the match kind of as it progressed. And then I want to give you guys with, I'll leave you with some takeaways, some kind of worrisome, but, some positive, with a view to the second leg. This scoreline leaves everything completely wide open. The return leg is going to be one of those historic semifinal, matches that we'll be discussing for years, because the buildup and the tension to this one's going to be incredible. And I'll be there. I'll, of course, show you guys incredible footage from the stadium. And as the bus arrives down here in Sagrados Corazones, which is, 200 feet away from me. But listen, this was an incredible match. Let me give you my thoughts, my analysis, and some important takeaways. All right. So welcome back to the channel. Let's get started. Madridistas, welcome back. Okay, let's talk about this unbelievable match last night. Okay, now let's start with the lineups very quickly. This is what they look like. Now Bayern, the only things I would mention in terms of the Bayern lineup, De Ligt at the end didn't make it. He was recovering from an injury and didn't make it in time, so he was substituted by Min-Yo Kim, obviously, tall, very physical defender as well. And then, Sane and Musiala, they appear here in their normal formation, but it's very important to mention that in the first half, they actually swapped sort of left and right. And this would be incredibly important because when they went back to their natural positions in the second half, it made a massive difference. In terms of the Real Madrid lineup, I had in my preview, in case you guys didn't see it, I had mentioned that my preference would have been to see Tchouaméni in the back with Rudiger and then Camavinga in the sort of pivot in the defensive midfield position. That would have been my personal preference. Ancelotti did not opt for this. He opted for Nacho as a center back and put Tchouaméni up in that sort of pivot position and left Camavinga on the bench. That's something that he later corrected immediately once we went down. But I was kind of disappointed to see that. But anyway, those were the lineups. Now, let's talk about the match itself. Now, for the first, I would say about 17 minutes, it was very frustrating. Okay, this is a pattern that Real Madrid falls into very regularly, where we sometimes come onto the pitch sort of frozen. We kind of look, like deer in the headlights. We come out very cold, very slow, with a lack of intensity. A lot of ball watching. We look more like spectators in the match as opposed to participants. Bayern had much more intensity, much more speed. They were on the front foot. For the first 17 minutes, it was just one-way traffic, and Bayern kind of coming at us over and over. And thankfully, their finishing wasn't very good, because otherwise things could have gotten very, very ugly. So, that's sort of what was going on the first sort of, I would say, about 17 minutes or so. Now, we couldn't get the ball. We also were having a lot of trouble getting the ball out of the back. So we ended up in positions where we were just booting the ball out. But then in about the 18th minute, something really, really special happened. So we need to talk about this guy, but more specifically, this guy. At about the 18th minute, I'll give you an example of what we weren't able to do in those first 17 minutes. I mean, this is a picture. This is like the 6th minute, kind of Rudiger, booting the ball out. This is what happened in the 14th minute. Lucas Vázquez, surrounded, nowhere to go, boots the ball out, etc. Now, after about the 18th minute, Kroos very intelligently, and this is where he demonstrates his experience and his football IQ, his football intelligence, which is exceptional. He starts to move back all the way left to right in taking exactly those little spaces to oxygenate our outlet balls. So he finds the exact pockets where he needs to be to facilitate the outlet of the ball and to help us sort of play the ball out. So if you look, this is an example here of Tony, coming back, helping to relieve the pressure, receiving the ball here. Here's another one. Now here he's receiving it in a throw-in, but look how far back he is. This resulted in a foul and let us play the ball forward after that. This is another example of Tony, coming back, on the right side to help with the outlet. So Tony was very intelligent in finding those little spots to help us move the ball out, and I think showed his experience. A couple of minutes later, in the 21st minute, look what he does. He puts together one of the most beautiful passes that you will see in football. And I think this is up there with the Luka Modric pass to Rodrigo 2 years ago against Chelsea. This is one of the most beautiful passes you'll see in football. This should be in a football museum somewhere. The run from Vini was perfect. And then the intelligence and vision of Kroos and the execution of that pass was just absolutely brilliant. And then, so we go up 1-0, and then even after the goal, here you see Tony, providing, again, oxygen on the left-hand side, intelligently moving in front of that defense anywhere he needs to be to help move the ball out. So Kroos, I think, was the best player of the match, certainly in the first half. But I needed to mention that because that rut that we were in for the first 17 minutes, Toni Kroos single-handedly got us out of that mess. Anyway, so after this, after our Vini's goal, obviously Bayern Munich starts pushing up, quite aggressively. None of the chances were too dangerous. They weren't too threatening, but they were certainly pushing forward quite a bit. And Real Madrid did have some opportunity to counter, but again, also not creating very, very clear chances. So that's sort of the way the first half sort of ran out. Now, the second half, things get really interesting. The first few minutes of the second half, we actually looked quite good. And it looked like we were kind of in control. We looked calmer. Bayern defensively didn't look as composed. And you had the feeling at this point that maybe, Real Madrid is going to settle in and take control of the match. Now, unfortunately, it wasn't the case for one very important reason. In the second half, Sané and Musiala switched back to their natural position. So Sané went back to the right, which is what he loves to do, to cut inside from the right, shoot with the left. And Musiala went, to the left wing and faced Lucas Vázquez. Now, this is one of the matchups that in my preview I warned you was going to be very difficult for us, and it turned out to be lethal. But so in the first few minutes, we look quite composed, but then out of absolutely nowhere, very, very quickly, and this is why Bayern is so dangerous, without really much lead play, Sané produces just a wonderful goal. Just a one-on-one situation, against Mendy. He cuts very quickly to the left and shoots very, very quickly. A fantastic shot. Very little that Lunin could do, I think. I mean, to be fair. But this is the risk of this team. So 2 minutes later, when we were barely just digesting this goal, 2 minutes later you have the Musiala play against Lucas Vázquez, the one-on-one in the box that produces the penalty. So in the space of 2 minutes, we take 2 goals, and again, Lucas Vázquez, I had mentioned in my preview, this was my biggest concern, that he's a good player. He's been very consistent this year, and he does well participating in attack, but he doesn't have the same kind of mettle defensively that Carvajal has. So anyway, we find ourselves down 2-1. Now, after this, Ancelotti starts to make changes. He brings in Camavinga and actually switches to the formation that I had hoped for, which was pushing Tchouaméni to center back, putting Camavinga in that defensive midfield position. And that happened sort of in the 64th minute, just after the 2-1. At this point, Real Madrid starts pushing forward. But, Bayern do look dangerous on the break, so it wasn't like we had any particular control of the match, even after the 2-1, even though we were trying to push forward. In the 75th minute, Ancelotti did something that really confused me. He took out Kroos, which, I was very, very surprised. I think Kroos was the man of the match for Real Madrid along with Vini. But it was very surprising to me because Kroos brought so much common sense, so much oxygen, and so much relief to our play. I was very, very surprised. In a subsequent interview, Ancelotti said that this was because he felt he needed fresh legs and thought, Modric would bring in kind of, fresh legs. But I was a little bit surprised to see that. Jude came out because I think he had a cramp. It wasn't a tactical decision. It was because I think he wasn't, he felt some difficulty in one of his legs. And then the last 15 minutes, the game was quite tense. And I think at this point, at the 2-1, both teams were sort of thinking about the scoreline. I got the feeling, neither team at that point really wanted to risk too much. And they were thinking about the second leg already. So they weren't taking too much risk. And then, of course, in the 81st minute, when you least expected, Vini and Rodrigo basically just invent a penalty out of nothing. And this is one of the beauties of having really skillful players is that even when you're tactically not in a position to create anything, you do it anyway because Vini's play was just magical and Rodrigo's turn was so intelligent. And it was a clear penalty. And again, this was just not a product of play or strategy or any tactics. This was just 100% skill. And it's just the magic of having players like this. So anyway, the match ends 2-2. But let's think about where we go from here because the scoreline leaves everything open. Now, I want to give you guys some takeaways, things that concern me, but also things that I think are positive. So in terms of concerns, look, we have learned, we knew this, but we've learned again that Bayern Munich is as dangerous defending as they are attacking. This is a team that can defend positionally, and if they recover a ball, they are brutally dangerous. They're just very, very dangerous on the counter. It's a quality that we have, but it's a quality that they also have. And we need to be very, very careful losing balls in the midfield, something we need to really keep in mind. Number two, Kane and Muller's mobility is a real problem. The way that these guys swap positions, the way that Kane moves out of the box, to the sides, to the back, puts himself in a passing position, and Muller takes that space. They make so much space for each other. They're very experienced players, and I think we just have to be very aware that none of this is going to be positional. We have to almost play man-to-man because there's so much movement between these two, and they create so much space for each other. It's very dangerous, and we have to be very careful in the return leg. Number three, okay, I'm stating the obvious, but Sané and Musiala in one-on-one situations in their natural wings are lethal. These guys are absolutely lethal. So I really think we have to be very aware that we need Fede to come further back and help on the right, and we need the pivots to be very active, helping in these one-on-one situations because both of these players are extremely good technically and they're very good finishers. This is something we need to be particularly careful with. Now, on the positive side, there are some things that we also need to mention. First of all, I think Vini is getting much better in the natural number 9 position. And this, we've seen this progress the last few months. Vini's getting much more used to playing up the middle. This gives us a lot of firepower because it allows other players to play the wings. And, I think we're much more dangerous with this newfound flexibility. Vini is playing very well in that 9 position. I think that we're already thinking ahead in terms of Mbappe coming and the ability for these players to switch up front. But it's very, very good to see that Vini is, his finishing is improving and his sort of movement as a number 9 is looking better and better. Number 2, we're reminded after this match of the value of experience that Kroos and Modric bring. And yes, physically, they have their limitations. Kroos is obviously younger, but Modric Modric is not, he's not going to be able to play 90 minutes in matches like this, but the 15, 20 minutes that he brings are very, very good, and they have that experience and that intelligence. Toni Kroos single-handedly showed us what experience and intelligence can do. I mean, he literally took us out of the trenches in that first half. So it's just I think a very, really positive takeaway that we have these resources to rely on in difficult moments. Okay, number 3, another thing I noticed that I really liked was Vini. Vini is coming back a lot to help oxygenate the outlet balls. So when we're having trouble getting the ball out, Vini is really running back a lot and picking up balls in the midfield. And I think it's really helping. There were 3 or 4 occasions where Vini really, really helped, giving an added body in terms of that transition play. So that was also very positive to see. I think Vini as a player is developing incredibly well. And then 4th, and this I think could be the edge in terms of what happens in the semifinal, is the individual skill that Real Madrid has is I think unparalleled in the world. I mean, the Vini and Rodrigo penalty is a perfect example of what the advantage that you have when your players are so skillful, they're so technical, that they can literally create something out of nothing. And I think this could prove to be the key to the semifinal. But, it's a very positive takeaway that we have, experience on the one hand, but we have so much skill up front, and I think it can make a huge difference. So, listen, this was a really tense, incredible first leg. It didn't disappoint, I think, in any way. Bayern Munich is a really serious rival, and I have so much respect for them. But listen, I think we can do this. The scoreline is not bad. All we have to do is win in the Bernabeu, which is something we know how to do. The second leg is going to be insane. Like I say, I'm going to bring you guys footage from the Bernabeu, and I'm going to give you guys footage of the bus coming in. It's going to be an incredible historic night, so I'll try to bring you guys some of that as well. But anyway, those are my thoughts and my takeaways. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in the next video. And as always, a la Madrid.